right. Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to KYCA PM. Jason Zenzaletta sitting in with you again. And folks, if you're listening to the radio and you have a chance to get online, hey, we're on Facebook. We're on our website. Live coverage online so you can see our pretty faces on the internet. Isn't it great? This wonderful fad called television. Don't ask me. I think radio's the best, but you never know what you're going to see on TV, right? There we are. Okay, folks, 928-541-1016. That's our call-in number today on this absolutely beautiful but hot Tuesday afternoon, and I say that because the air conditioning is out and it's 500 degrees in this studio right now. So, braving the heat, braving the horrible conditions in this terrible studio that the air conditioner's broken in, we have Dr. Selina Bliss in, who is running for the state legislature in LD1. How you doing, Selina?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Jason.
Good to have you back in the studio as a candidate again. And let's see, you ran 2 years ago.
I did.
Didn't quite make it, but so this time you're running for the House again.
Absolutely.
And first question, I guess, right out of the gate is the fact that this is the Republican primary that you're running for. And at this point, I believe you have 4 qualified candidates running on the Republican ticket for 2 seats in the general election, correct?
Yeah, and I'd really like to emphasize that piece. First, a little go back. I was 2.3% away from the vote.
Oh, yes.
I've lived here since 1971, so I'm not going anywhere. You can't get rid of me. So, yeah, I'm back.
All right.
But, yeah, the voters need to pick 2 members for the House, so they really need to think about the team. Who's going to work best to get the job done for this district? And it's really important to point out LD1 is pretty much Yavapai County. Since the redistricting, some people are still kind of confused on that. So.
Yeah, it seems like they've drawn in the boundaries. I think they have taken in, if I understand correctly, that they have a little bit of Sedona as part of Coconino County that is being drawn into LD1, which makes sense, of course.
Yeah, there was a compromise to keep communities of interest intact. Sedona got carved out to be kept whole and in our district, but what we had to give up was Wickenburg. They got carved out of the district. So it's not perfect, but overall, it's good to go back to where we were 10 years ago, where Yavapai County was one legislative district. So I'm pleased about the changes.
It's a good way to do it. So you're looking at this, and as you say, this is a team effort. We're looking at the Senate is an open seat because Karen Fann is retiring and not running for re-election. And we have 2 candidates on the Republican side over there. And we have a Republican team right now in the legislature. How are you going to be different? What do you want to do?
So this is really important because I'm running against 2 incumbents. So people need to understand their choices. Mm-hmm. Look who's sitting in the seat right now. Look at what I have to offer, and look at the difference. I'm passionate about this community. I'm engaged in political and civic events. You're going to see me out in the community. That's not necessarily what you're seeing right now. I will advocate for our voters in this district and this state. Like I said, I've lived here over 50 years. I have the enthusiasm, the passion, the energy. I have the means to represent this district. And frankly, I think people are ready for a change. So we're going to leave it up to the voters. But us candidates have to get our messages out, send people to our websites, make sure the voters do their due diligence in vetting the candidates.
Okay, very good. And very quickly, your website.
SelinaBliss.com. And that spelling is SELINA bliss.com.
There you go. All right. Very quickly, I mean, let's take a look at the legislature as a whole right now. We have had a razor-thin Republican majority. If it holds true that the nationwide sentiment applies to Arizona, we may have a little bit more of a majority in terms of the Republicans in both houses. So taking a look at how things have gone the last year and a half, and of course we're still in session right now, what's your grade? How have they done, and what could they have done differently?
Well, I've seen of the 1,400 bills, a lot of important legislation has died because what we have right now down at the Capitol are 90 governors, because everyone with this razor-thin difference in the House, there's 31 Republicans to 29 Democrats, 1 dissenter on the Republican side, kills a bill. Same on the Senate side, 16 Republicans, 14 Democrats. So if you think about those 90 legislators, they all have the power of the governor to veto a bill. So it's been disappointing to see some of the legislation that has died. I'm taking note. I want to come back with a vengeance on some of these bills when it comes to protecting Second Amendment, election integrity, school choice. We have a lot of work to do, so I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to it.
Okay, let's say you walk into the House in January, you take the oath of office. What's the first bill in the hopper for you?
All right, so here's where when you look at our issues, ask, you have candidates that just talk about the issues. Ask them what they're doing about it. For me, I'm very strong representing the Second Amendment. I practice my Second Amendment rights through the Well-Armed Women, both the Chino Valley and Gun Site chapters. I teach concealed carry weapons courses. I volunteer on the Arizona State Rifle and Pistol Association with our current sitting representative, Quang Nguyen. And we're talking about legislation that we can present next session. And he had a bill for campus carry, which got defeated. Again, one Republican, I won't mention the name, you can go look it up yourself, vetoed this bill on the floor. So I said to Quang, let's split that up because I work on a community college campus. I'm not allowed to practice my Second Amendment rights while at work. I am the poster child for this. So I said to him, let's split it up. Let's have a bill for employees and a bill for students that are qualified, that are trained, concealed carry, and let's make this pass. And he said something very nice to me. He said, Selina, I'm going to give that to you, and that can be your first piece of legislation because I truly am the poster child for this. Having taught at a community college for 26 years, we know that gun-free zones are criminal zones, and I'm not protected. I'm not able to protect myself as the law currently exists.
Okay. Well, that's true. That is a good point. Let's switch gears just a little bit to what happened in Uvalde. We know that it looks like the U.S. Congress is going to get something through, the first time since 1994 that they've managed to get some sort of gun legislation through Congress. We don't quite know what it's going to look like. But I think the big thing that most people are talking about are red flag laws. And this is something that it looks like the federal government is going to be passing on to the states. I think it's quite obvious you stand against that.
That's exactly, because it worries me when you use a crisis and you manipulate it like the Democrats are doing to get their pieces of legislation through. This is not the time to be crafting legislation that's dangerous and that can take away our Second Amendment rights. I worry about people trying to chip away at these things. That's why we have to stand strong. We have to protect our Second Amendment. So I've been watching what the feds are trying to do very closely, because we got to stand up against their ideas that are dangerous to our ability to protect ourselves and the right to bear arms.
Okay, so what does a safe campus look like to you? What would you like to see?
So I've been talking to several folks how we can protect our students while in the school and their employees like myself. I've had several law enforcement officers come up and say, we need people on the ground that are ready to protect, like you would any business or agency you would walk into. We need better security systems. We have the technology. We have cameras. Why aren't we protecting our students? Currently, at the Arizona budget, we have an excess of $5.3 billion. We need to separate some of that money to protect our schools and provide that funding to do so. So I see a more secure surrounding. I see the use of technology and personnel on the ground that are qualified to protect our students and their employees. And then those, being a CCW instructor, those that can protect themselves should be allowed to do so, myself included.
All right. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a pause right now here on the program for a break. It looks like we may be having a call coming in, so we'll take plenty of time for that. We're going to take a break. We're here with Selina Bliss, running for LD1 State House of Representatives. Our number is 928-541-1016, and you will note I remembered the area code, 928-541-1016. If you've got a question for the candidate, please call in. Right now, let's pause, and we'll be right back. Back here on KYCA PM. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. If you're interested, we're on Facebook Live as well, so you can get a good look at us in the studio. And in case you shut us off, we're back on 1490 AM, 103.5 FM. There's a reason why people like me have been in radio all of our lives. So, 928-541-1016. We've got Selina Bliss in the studio. She's running for Statehouse LD1. We've been talking quite a bit about gun control legislation, things like that. Obviously, the big thing going on in the State House right now and the Senate is the budget. Otherwise, the legislature would have already been dismissed in May. So what's the problem and what's the solution next year?
You know, the problem, Jason, is that we have a budget surplus right now, so everyone wants a piece of the pie. When we're short on lean years, it's not so much of an argument. Think about our, on average, $12 billion budget. Mm-hmm. We have a $5.3 billion excess right now. Now, granted, some of it's one-time money. I believe a majority of that is. Some of it's ongoing spending. So everybody wants their fingers in that piece of pie. So that's what's happening down there at the legislature right now. These debates and arguments are going back and forth. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, some legislation is also tied to this budget. So once it's passed, we're going to get, the dust will clear and we'll get a better view of what's left standing, if you will, as far as good bills, bad bills. But a lot of work to do before the end of this month, or the government shuts down.
That's true.
Yeah.
And so what happens next year? What do you want to see happen? Obviously, you want to jump on the budget immediately, get started on that, but we're staring a recession in the face at this point. What needs to happen, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'm predicting dire days ahead at what I'm seeing in the news. We need to look at our rainy day budget, or rainy day fund, first and foremost, because in the past, after the recession in 2008, it was that rainy day fund that we really needed to maintain, and it became very, very important. I studied the legislature throughout the years because I knew my turn was coming. And what I saw in 2008 were Republicans that had to step up, make the hard decisions, but as a result, Arizona fared fairly well. So we need that kind of decision-making and readiness and preparedness, as we may have some pretty dark days ahead. I'm normally an optimist. I'm trying to stay optimistic, but I see some challenges coming up and some very difficult decisions. Something that inspires me is my grandfather served in the State House in the South Dakota legislature for 17 years, and he chaired appropriations for most of that. So I saw him making those very difficult financial decisions for the state. Heck, he had to shut down the college my parents met at and turn it into a prison. My family was very, very upset, needless to say, but at the time, it's what needed to happen in the state to keep it solvent. So seeing him make those tough decisions made me realize, yeah, I'm prepared to do this and take it head on.
Okay. What committees would you want to serve on? What's most important to you?
Well, being a nurse for 36 years here in the Yavapai County, first and foremost, I want to vice chair the Health and Human Services, obviously on the House side. This is where I'm a subject matter expert. I understand the language. I can read through the lines. I can tell you what's good, what's bad, and how the process works. I'd also like to be on appropriations, obviously, because that's where the tough decisions are made. I use data. I do a lot of research. I know where to go for information. I think I would be very effective in that area. And then I look at the work that Noel Campbell did those years on the Transportation Committee. We really need someone from rural Arizona that's willing and able, like myself, to serve on that committee. So those are the top three if I have my way.
Okay. Well, you never know. I mean, it depends on the leadership, of course. And with the House and with the Senate, there's going to be a full turnover. So who knows, who's going to be in charge, who looks to be the Speaker or the President of the Senate, and all that. Okay, so how do you represent Yavapai County in terms of what do you see as the most important thing right now facing us here in your district?
Well, having grown up here, seeing the change in leadership evolve over the years, you got to go back to the basics. There's the statewide issues, and then there's the district issues. Here in LD1, and this is where I'm glad we brought back Yavapai County, we got to look at growth and water. Water transcends our county because we are sitting on an active management area, one of 5 in the state of Arizona. We have the Big Chino Aquifer, which is groundwater, feeding into the Verde River that flows into the east side of our county and then down to the valley. That's surface water. Currently, our water laws in Arizona are outdated, and there's a disconnect between groundwater and surface water. And we could suffer from that with our beautiful Verde River if we don't address those right away. So the water issue is a very high priority.
Okay, obviously population growth plays a big part of that, and we've seen a big explosion in population throughout the state over the past year or two since COVID.
Yeah, and we got to keep in mind what you see today are decisions made 8 to 10 years ago. People don't realize that history is very important. So look at who's making those decisions, what data they're making them on, and then that will predict what we will look like in 8 to 10 years. There's no doubt. When I moved here in 1971, Prescott Valley was 5 buildings. Right. Paulden was supposed to be the next Sun City. Who would have guessed? So seeing the changes over the years, I'm very cognizant of that history and those decisions being made by our leadership.
Okay. Obviously, if you don't mind me saying so, you're a conservative.
Absolutely. Constitutional conservative,
Constitutional conservative. How do you work with the Democrats in the legislature, some of whom I would put up there with the squad, to be quite honest with you?
Yeah, so there's some pretty extremists down there when it comes to the liberal left. It's going to take someone with negotiation skills to speak, but at the end of the day, it's being prepared to debate, kind of understanding your enemy. I really believe in Sun Tzu, The Art of War, the 15th century philosopher that teaches in leadership. Understand your enemy. My dad always taught me go in well prepared, but be ready to attack both on the side and from behind. So I don't want to give away too much of my strategy, but yeah, I'm ready to take them on. Some of their logic, they think is logic, you can twist it on them easily. It just blows my mind, some of the things they're trying to do to tear down our country. And that's where we have to fight to keep what we have. And that goes back to why I'm running, really. It's out of a desire to have Arizona reach its full potential and out of care and concern for this district and this state. We need people that are strong enough to protect what we have and fight back that liberal left and the dangers they pose to our state and our district.
Okay. And obviously, now, this is just me talking, I think we need some help in Yavapai County in terms of businesses.
Absolutely.
And this is something I guess you would try to be as active in as possible.
Yeah, so with the COVID, the unconstitutional COVID shutdowns, we saw our businesses struggle. We see diseases of despair, depression, anxiety, suicide rates are going up. We labeled some businesses essential and others not so much. We shut down churches. We have a lot of damage control. As a nurse, I see that we need to bring back our business and our economy. So we need to look at the state, at our regulations. We need to pull back the regulations. We need to be a tax-friendly state. A good piece of legislation was lowering the flat tax for income tax to 4.5%. I feel we can do better in that. That will encourage people to come out of their homes and go back to work. So it's all about earned success, not learned helplessness, which you see the left trying to push that dependency. So I'm about getting people jobs. That's why I work at a community college. It's all about advocating for others to give back to their communities. Not only was I a nurse 36 years, I taught nursing the last 26 full-time to empower people to serve in their community. And that's that business sense, getting people to work, getting them proud of what they're doing. So a lot of work to be done there, a lot of damage to repair, unfortunately.
Well, that's true. So, okay, we just have a few moments left. Folks, again, 928-541-1016. You can ask Selina Bliss anything. There's lots of stuff going on. So, obviously, this is a part-time position. I mean, it's supposed to be. They're still in session right now, as a matter of fact. And so, how do you what do you see your job as the rest of the year as being part of the legislature? I mean, we see different philosophies from different representatives.
Yeah, Arizona is a citizens legislature in that we're supposed to be part-time, but if you're really doing the job right, you're there full-time. You're working full-time. No sooner does the session end in the spring, or in this case, the first 6 months, but we're already looking at legislation to introduce next session. We're already talking to folks, collaborating with the committee chairs, getting those votes, whipping up the votes, if you will. So that work goes year round. If I had to take 2 weeks off during the year, I wouldn't know what 2 weeks those would be other than Christmas, because there's so much work to do year round. And then these terms are short. They're only 2 years. So every other year, we're campaigning.
Right.
So I got to say that what suffers is the amount of legislation during campaign years, because folks are working on staying in office. It's hard to make good legislation if you're not sure you're going to be there the following year. So for me, it's a year-round full-time job. Fortunately, I'm newly retired, so I've got a lot of energy to give back.
There you go. Okay, folks, we're going to take a break here at the bottom of the hour. Stay with us. More after the break. 541-1016. Call in. We've got Selina Bliss running for State House LD1 in the House. Amazing, amazing. You're in the House. This is great.
I say put Bliss in the House.
There you go. I mean, we're all for that. And right now, especially with, as we've said, a razor-thin majority in the House and Senate, it's amazing anything gets done down there. And again, that's leadership right there for you. That's Karen Fann and the Speaker going at it. But as we said, Karen's not going to be in the Senate next year. It's going to be somebody new, and it's going to be a new president as well. And then we have the House. I mean, anything can happen in the House. We know that. Okay, so, folks, if you want to call in, 928-541-1016. Any question is fine. By the way, we're live right now on Facebook and on our webpage. So if you want to get a good look at us, Here's your chance, because it's not going to last for more than this hour. Okay. Very quickly, of course, the big thing that Arizona wants to talk about besides the economy is the wall, the border, everything that's going on down there, because this is having a serious direct effect on Yavapai County, even though we're a few hundred miles away in terms of drugs, not to mention the people we really don't see. We know they're coming through our county. They might not have a lasting effect to some extent, but we're talking about human trafficking, we're talking about drugs. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so as a candidate for the Arizona legislature, I am laser focused on what we can do outside of, we can't do what the feds do, so we can't step over their jurisdiction. But when I look at border issues, there's definitely legislation that the state can take care of. Look at examples in other states. I always say there's template legislation, if you will, in that other states have passed good laws that we don't have to reinvent the wheel here in Arizona. So when you look at the border, look at Texas. In a state of emergency, they raised their prosecution level for trespassing. We can do that here. We can look at the cartels. We need to label them as a terrorist organization so we can increase the penalty there. Look what they're doing right now. The cartels are advertising on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok to have people, American citizens, meet illegal aliens at the border, and for $1,000 per head, you too can transport someone into the country. They're recruiting teenagers on social media. We have to shut that down. So we need to draft some legislation as far as prosecuting those social media platforms that encourage this. I volunteered for the Yavapai County Search and Rescue for the last 8 years, so I'm very familiar with our Sheriff's Department and their capabilities. And the Sheriff's Department of the various counties are directly under the purview of the state. So let's look at how are we staffing the choke points, if you will, the areas where we see the high illegal activity. Let's look at the technology. Let's support those boots on the ground to stop those flows, if you will. As a nurse, I was taught if you have a hemorrhage, you stop the bleed. You put the pressure on the point of the bleed. It's the same here with the border. Let's see where the bleed is occurring, the hemorrhage of the illegal activity of, like you said, the sex trafficking, the fentanyl and the drugs, the inhumanity that the liberals have caused by setting up this failure in our border. So let's address that and be laser focused on what we can and can't do. I do support what the governor signed off as his strike task force for looking at beyond Arizona, because let's face it, we get a good border, a good solid border in Arizona. We do have to address our neighboring bordering states. If they're going to allow illegal activity to come through New Mexico, for example, those folks could end up in Arizona. So it's not just an Arizona issue. It involves all border states beyond us. You mentioned something that I'd like to share. 10 years ago as a nurse, I used to go, every once in a while, they'd send me down to labor and delivery. This is not my thing. I was an emergency room nurse. But 10 years ago, I would hear and report the few times I'd go down there that we have a laboring mom. She just crossed the border yesterday. And this was going on right under our noses 10 years ago. I don't understand how we've let this go on so long. So I'm glad I'm finally in a position to step up, call out the illegal activity, call in what we can do about it, and put a stop to this.
Okay. And again, this is something that is a governor's call, but in the end, it's not just that you're trying to close the border. To me, it seems that you're also fighting a federal government that is a no-border administration, that is a open border administration, I guess you could say, or a no border administration. What do you do at the state level? I mean, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, some candidates say, well, let's sue the federal government. Well, is that practical? Can we do that? I want to look at actions we actually can carry out and that are laser focused and effective. There's no doubt there's a push-pull between state and federal jurisdictions. But in this example, Jason, I really feel it's an example of federal overreach and their inadequacy in this current administration to get the job done. I go back to the 10th Amendment, state rights. What the feds can't do, we got to step up and do for ourselves.
Okay. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break here on the News 1490 on KYCA PM. 928-541-1016. Selina Bliss in the hot seat. I would say in the House, but you're not there yet. Almost. We'll see how that goes. But right now, let's pause, and we'll be back after this. back to KYCA PM. If you've been watching us for the last hour, my goodness, what an eyeful you've gotten here from both of us. But thanks for joining in, Facebook and our webpage here on kyca.info. Selina Bliss, running for LD1 once again. Okay, something a little more closer to home. We've done talking about the feds, and yet here we are talking about school choice. This is a big deal. What does that mean to you? What needs to happen?
Well, when you say school choice, it's really parent choice because they know
Right.
what's best for the child. And having that option, and by the way, Arizona is a leader in school choice options. We started good legislation 10 years ago, but let's face it, we need to expand it. Right now, those that are eligible for the Empowerment Scholarship Accounts, the ESAs, is a very limited list. So one of the first points of action as a new legislator is to expand that list of options. So currently we've got public, private, and charter schools. Look at the public school. It's chewing up over 54% of our state budget. We've got to look at efficiencies. So when I look at school choice, I see competition, which is good, that promotes efficiencies. There are other things the state could do as far as how we fund our public schools. We really need to look at, let's pay the teachers first, so let's start from the bottom up, not the top down like it currently is. But we absolutely have to acknowledge that our parents are the expert as to what's best for the child. Most people don't realize on the Arizona Revised Statutes, we have a parental bill of rights that's been in effect for 10 years, that parents have the right to determine what's best for their child, especially in education. We need the schools to customize the curriculum for the child, not forcing the child to fit the school. So we're doing well, but we've got some work to do. And here's where my background in education, again, not only am I strong in education but healthcare, but I can see through the terminology. Face it, when you look at critical race theory, it's racism. It's teaching mean people to be mean, and it's promoting racism. So I see the language, and sometimes it's the hidden words, like in social emotional learning. That's the delivery of racist ideologies or personal agendas. So I can cut through that language as a subject matter expert and call it on what it is. So a lot of work to be done in schools, school choice. Something I'd like to share again, I say, ask candidates what they're doing about these issues. I volunteer for the Yavapai County Education Foundation, and I do that because we serve all schools, public, private, and charter. And to me, it's important to support all the choices so that parents have a choice.
Okay. I'll tell you what, let's go to a phone call. Looks like Earl's on line one. He wants to clarify an issue, I believe. So let's go ahead and bring Earl on. Earl? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, you can hear us. And you're on the air with Jason and Selina Bliss.
Hi, guys.
Okay.
I've been listening for the last half hour or so, and Jason, when you asked Selina about the border wall, I think she answered that question like a politician, and I'd actually like to pin her down a little bit and get a more direct answer if she's in favor of the wall being built.
Sorry, Earl. I'm sorry. You're kind of breaking up there. Are you still there? Sorry, Earl. You're kind of breaking up just a little bit. Sounds like you wanted her to clarify her position on the border wall construction. Is that right? I'm very sorry, Earl. Yeah, for some reason we missed you there, but did you get the gist of his question?
Yeah, and I absolutely want to clarify, we've got to finish the wall. That's what's leading to this illegal entry and the inhumanity at the border. So I'm saying as a state legislator, let's focus first on those state lands, which we have control over. President Trump, he was doing a great job getting that wall built, but he got interrupted. So we've got to take off where he left off, get the wall done, get the personnel down there, use the technology to get the job done.
Okay. Is there something else? Well, obviously we do have the money. We can build the wall, and we can build, put together plug some of the holes, basically, is what I mean.
Yeah, stop the bleed.
To say. Is there anything outside of the National Guard that Arizona can or should do to bolster, say, the Border Patrol and help them out? In Texas, it's the DPS, I believe, that they've been able to because their laws are different in Texas, they're able to deploy the DPS on the border. Is there anything we can do or that we should do?
Yeah, so I got a little grief about this, but I was talking to the Arizona Rangers. I really admire the work this group of volunteers do. They're highly qualified. Most of them are retired law enforcement officers. There's a lot of potential in volunteerism and a workforce that's already been established and has a 100-year history. So I would like to look more at what can we use as far as non-governmental organizations in this piece. I do support deploying the National Guard, but it's not sustainable at the cost. And let's face it, when the National Guard goes down there, they're effectively neutered because the feds say stand in the corner and change diapers. I mean, this is what was happening when they were sent there 2 years ago. So I would like to see a more efficient use of the National Guard. And let's call upon some of our volunteers, in this case, the Arizona Rangers. I'm also familiar, again, with the sheriff's office and what the capability for them to do is. So I want to support them to help fill in those gaps where we see most of the illegal activity.
Okay. Earl, if you called in, if that answered your question, great, but feel free to call in again, and we'll see if we can get you on the air with a clear line if you still have a further question or want some further clarification, okay? And anybody else, you're welcome to call 928-541-1016. Selina, let's go ahead and take a final break of the hour, and then we can wrap things up, and if anybody else calls in, wonderful. We look forward to it, but right now let's take a break, and we'll be back after this. On KYCA PM 928-541-1016. And so I want to thank everybody for listening. We've just got a little bit of time left. Selina Bliss running for LD1 in the Statehouse. Pleasure to have you back in here, Selina, explaining everything. I always love for all the candidates to come in and explain their positions. So right away, I guess, again, I'm going to ask you a loaded question, and all I have to say is Roe v. Wade. So go.
Yes, I'm very much a pro-life candidate. On my website, I posted videos on the issues. 3 months ago, I posted a video predicting that Roe versus Wade would be overturned because it's unconstitutional. So I saw it coming, and I realized Arizona needs strong pro-life candidates. Right now on the books at the Arizona revised statutes, we have a bill from the territorial legislature from 1901 that understood how important it was to protect the unborn. There's a law on the books that will revert the day Roe versus Wade is overturned that says anyone that performs an abortion will get 2 to 5 years prison time for doing so. So that's the only sitting law we have. We need strong legislators ready to hit the ground running to write laws that further go into detail to protect our innocent and our unborn. I'm what you call a womb to tomb candidate. All life is precious.
Okay.
Yeah, especially innocent life. That's for sure.
Uh,
As a
folk-
practicing Christian, that's very, very important to me.
Absolutely. Okay, folks, I'm sorry the studio's still under construction, so things fall occasionally. But we do have a phone call on line one. We've got Ben with a question on education, so let's go ahead and bring Ben in. Ben, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Hey, you sound good. So sorry, Earl,
Appreciate that.
from earlier, but you're on the air with Jason and Selina. So, Ben, go ahead.
Yes, I had a question for you. I know years back they had imposed a sin tax that was taxing tobacco, and I assume alcohol, I'm not sure, but a lot of that money was supposed to go to education. A lot of billions were raised for that. Then a few years later, the Red for Ed movement came about. They asked for more money. Did we ever figure out where that money went?
Not that I'm aware of. We also need to look at the lottery. There was money earmarked for education in that case. So again, having lived here for so many decades, you do have to scratch your head and go back to what we knew to be true in the past. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. And yes, I totally agree with that. And then also with the border wall, I had heard, and I was in the impression, I don't know if you'd heard about this, I heard that they were going to tax the Western Unions going back to Mexico. Is that something that, did you hear about that?
No, I haven't. I'm not aware of that, but anytime I hear something from someone in our district or in the state, I go back and I research it. So you just gave me a little bit of homework, something to look up.
Okay. Good. All right. All right. Well, I think America's Got Talent's on tonight, so don't work too hard.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Appreciate your phone call. Okay. All right, let's go ahead. Yeah, thanks. All right, thanks, Ben, and thanks, Earl, for calling in. We've just got a few moments left, so I think the big thing is, Selina, what haven't we covered? What do you stand for?
You know, there's so much more. We covered the big issues facing the state. There's so many issues specific to this district. Something I'm hearing from the voters are off-highway vehicles and the damage that's causing. I'm hearing the short-term rentals and the state overreach from unintended consequences from legislation that passed in 2016 needs to be corrected. We talked a bit about water, but there's a lot of work to be done there. We do need to look at the fentanyl and the criminal penalties there. I'm looking at search and rescue again as a volunteer workforce through the sheriff's office and how we can better capitalize on that. Again, there's good template legislation in other states. So again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but I hear good ideas from the voters, and I'm starting a list. It's my shopping list, if you will. If you look at the 1,400 bills that were submitted this legislative session, and you do the math, there's 90 legislators. Each legislator should be sponsoring 14 to 15 good bills, not anything that's out to get a name or a reputation or cost us money, but good ideas made into good bills. And some of those aren't just new ideas, but it's going up and cleaning bad legislation from the past. So a lot to happen at the district in addition to the state.
Okay. I'll throw a question at you if you don't mind, and you don't have to answer this. Everybody has their own opinion. Any particular favorites for governor or any of the other major candidates that we're looking at? Of course, obviously, I think you'd like to see a Republican sweep at the top of the lists up
Absolutely. We've got to take back this state. So I'm often asked my opinion on the district, the Senate race, as well as the governor. I am not going to cast an opinion on other people's campaigns, if you will.
Okay.
We'll let the voter decide. But in the case of the governor, we need a strong governor that's going to be tough on border issues because it's got to be someone we can work with. Face it, the current governor, I think he checked out 4, 5, 6 months ago or longer. We're not seeing him engage with the House side or the Senate. So I'm looking for someone that's going to be communicative, be proactive. And then as a legislator, I want to start with the end in mind. Why sponsor a bill you know the governor won't sign off? So my intention is to visit and start at the end, get that, what does the governor look for? And that's where I need a strong boss, if you will, or a colleague to sign off good legislation. So it's going to be that relationship and that communication with the members of the House and Senate.
Okay, fantastic. And let's see, what else haven't we covered? Goodness, just throw anything out there. We've got a couple of minutes left, Selina. Go ahead.
You know, I think it's on the voters to really look at the candidates you have currently sitting in the State House. I believe this district deserves better. If you look at the amount of bills sponsored, if you look at how engaged the current legislators are, you're going to determine there are differences, and you have a choice. I'm offering you a choice. I'm engaged in the community. I'm a natural advocate. I'm active politically and civically. I'm passionate about conservative causes. You're going to see me after passing election and getting into this position. You're going to see me out in the community, giving updates, having a presence. It's very important that your current legislators are in the community, listening to the voters, and always thinking about what's next. You're going to get that with me. You're going to get a fighter, an advocate, a person that knows this community. So again, I would invite everyone to go to my website. I've got video, press releases. I did not hire a strategist to create a template in their words and put my name on top. Instead, I have a website I created. It's got a lot of information, more than you'd possibly want to know about where I stand on the issues. But I want people, this is so important, that people know what their choices are and the difference in the candidates. So we know who's on the ballot. There's 4 people running for 2 positions. Look at their track record. Look at what they're doing actively to promote these issues and not just talking about them.
Okay. All right, fantastic. Well, we've got about a minute left, so once again, let's go over that. The selinabliss.com, correct?
That's right. 2 open positions, so think about the team you want. There's synergy. You get 2 strong legislators, you can get a lot more work done versus people working independently. So look at who's going to work well together and represent you in the State House.
Okay, and that's important because you're facing so many legislators from Maricopa and Pima counties. Yavapai kind of stands alone, but atop among the rural counties, I would believe.
Yes, we have a history and a reputation in LD1 of being a powerhouse down there. I want to bring back that leadership. I want to be the district that everybody looks at and says, what is LD1 thinking and what is LD1 doing? We had that in the past. I want to bring that back, that respect, and folks looking to us for leadership.
Okay. Well, Selina, thanks for coming in. We appreciate your time, and of course, you've got plenty of time to give because you want to get the message out there. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity.
You bet. And folks, thank you for tuning in, KYCA PM. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. Not the same people, though. Chris Kukney will be in the house tomorrow. So tune on in. Thanks for tuning in today. Despite the loss of air conditioning, we did a good show. So thank you. Take care. Stay cool. We'll talk to you soon.